Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another video. Today, we're going to be talking about what's going on in the United States in terms of the weather. As you can see, we do have a piece of our jet stream starting to dip down into the United States, and this is going to ride the West Coast, bringing those Santa Ana winds down into the Los Angeles area. And, there's honestly some similarities to what is happening right now in comparison to what could happen in the future. A little bit different. Potentially some colder air making it further down to the south. But we're going to be talking about the broad scale pattern, kind of the big picture of what is going to be possible here across the United States as we move into about the 8 to 10 day range. We're going to be watching out for where our upper level flow ends up. And even on this satellite imagery, you can see there is already some upper level flow in this area that will eventually be moved out of the way as we get a high pressure system dive into the United States, changing our pattern briefly with a brief warm up down here in the southeast. Still generally cold up here in the Ohio Valley, but a little bit warmer. But currently across the northeast, also going up into parts of the Great Lakes, we already have some lake effect snow happening over here near Michigan, where we have winter weather advisories up over here, looking at between 2 to 5 inches in some of these areas with locally higher amounts possible. We also have a couple winter weather advisories also setting up with some of these lake effect bands that are trying to get started as we get these snow squalls move off to the east. You can see we have a special weather statement on one of those, and also a winter weather advisory out over here as well. Can't forget about the UP of Michigan, also getting some winter storm warnings up here, and then also some winter weather advisories further to the east. This is going to be because of some lake effect snow possible on the backside of this low pressure system that just came through. Down over here, currently in the southeast, we have some rain that's going to generally move to the east and get out of our hair here shortly. Not really expecting too much. Might even hear a small little bit of thunder, but that's about it. If you had outdoor plans, just be planning for a little bit of rain. Down over here in the Southern California Pacific coast, you can see that we do have some red flag warnings all the way across these areas. This is a particularly dangerous situation as we can get between 55 and 70 mile-per-hour winds across this region. This is going to be from 10 p.m. Monday noon Wednesday due to gusty easterly winds and low humidities. So we're breaking all that down and what you need to expect across the United States in today's forecast. And how about we do a little bit of a trade? Again, hit that like and subscribe button. Not required, but it does help us reach a lot more people in the path of some of these weather systems. Now, zooming all the way out here, looking at Canada, there's Alaska over there, and the United States and Mexico to the south. You can see generally right now we have a low pressure regimen that is on the backside of this low pressure system that went throughout the United States and is kind of deepened off of the coast. A little bit of ridging to its south and another little ridge up here that's kind of getting kicked out of the northern Pacific, and eventually that's going to try to work its way down into the United States. Because of this, we are expecting a little bit of a warm up here, especially in the northern plains. Still going to be mainly below zero, but it's going to be warmer than average for this kind of year. And then also we're going to be seeing a little bit of a warm up down here in the southeast because of that as well. Look back over here. As soon as this one gets kicked out, another high pressure system starts to move in. As we continue to push this through the 16th into the 17th, you can see that high pressure system is working pretty darn hard to sling some of that Arctic cold air down into the United States. And you can really see that build up into Canada and then eventually sink down into the United States. As we look at our upper level winds and where a lot of our troughs and low pressure systems are going to be kind of getting slingshot with this jet stream, you can really see that we kind of nudged this over just a little bit to the east since the last time we looked at it. And the upper level flow isn't as strong as it was a couple of days when we looked at it, but still can't rule out that possibility for that cooler air to come down into the United States and also for low pressure systems to kind of ride up into this orange and red area. I think some of the good news you could glean from this part of the jet stream being a little bit further to the east is that the Santa Ana wind possibility is going to be a little bit lower because of this, meaning that if this model run really ends up confirming here over the next couple of days, we should see those winds calm down and it's not going to be a forever event, even though it kind of feels like that right now. But yeah, any low pressure system that can ride up in here, tap into that cold air and bring up that Gulf of Mexico moisture up into those freezing cold temperatures, that's what we're going to be watching out for, that snow potential. And as I push this off into the future, you can see that generally we kind of stay in the same pattern, but it weakens as we go into the end of January, meaning we might have a little bit of a warm up after this cold blast that is going to be trying to come into the United States. Speaking of that cold blast, you can see that right now we're generally cooler than average. It's actually going to get pretty cold over there in the Ohio Valley as we move into the 15th here. And then that's eventually going to move out of the way. High pressure system dives down into the United States, bringing a little bit of a warm up, especially up there in the northern plains, going into the Great Lakes a little bit, then also up here into the southeast and the central plains. And then that continues to push to the east and eventually gets replaced by that ridge that is up there moving in south of Alaska. And that's going to slingshot all of that cooler air in the Arctic down into the United States. And you can really see here, I mean, we're talking about anywhere from -20 to -30 degrees below average. So we're going to be well colder than what we are used to as we move into the 19th. And a lot of models are indicating this, so there's some pretty high confidence this is going to happen. In fact, the Climate Prediction Center over the next the next 8 to 14 days still has it below average out here. Below average temperatures really extending all the way from the northern plains down into the southeast and southern plains and also the Ohio Valley. But just wait until you see the 6 to 10 day range. Check this out. We have a 80% chance of temperatures being below average and even potentially way below average here in this kind of purple shaded region going all the way from Denver to Oklahoma City, Chicago, Madison, the northern plains going down into the southeast. It's going to be cold out there. It's just going to be a January to remember, as it's been a while since we've had a January this cold. Now, looking at where our precipitation is going to set up, as you can see with that little bit of an eastern shift of that troughing that we were talking about, you can see the precipitation has also moved to the east. So in my opinion, this is kind of looking like it might lower the snow chances a little bit with this, but really anything that forms back down in here rides that jet streak off to the north and east will still have some potential to bring some heavy snowfall, especially up in these areas here. We're going to have a lot of that cooler, dry air filtering in from the Arctic, and any of that moisture that comes up from the Gulf of Mexico and combines with that, it's going to set up for a pretty nice snow event. We still have some pretty big question marks here. Definitely no guarantees of a big snowstorm whatsoever. Now, fantasizing about what the future could look like, we're going to use the GFS here in a deterministic run. Again, most of these storms probably won't happen, as this is saying, but it gives us kind of a picture of what is going to happen if any of these storms start to set up in that kind of pattern that we were talking about. And as you can see, going into the 18th, that flow just starts to set up here. And you see we get a lot of moisture. The cold air really hasn't arrived yet. There are going to be some chances, and if this can phase just right with that colder air to the north, we could see some backside snow on this frontal boundary anywhere from Mississippi all the way through the southeast and going to the east coast. And eventually, this storm could try to wrap up there in the east coast. But again, big question marks about this. We've seen this solution before on the GFS multiple times, and it never happens. So I'm definitely skeptical about that. So I wouldn't get excited for like nor'easters or anything like that just yet. After that, that storm moves out of our system, and then we get a couple of attempts here for storms to fire. But again, with that eastern trend of that main area of flow, we're going to be having systems a little bit more to the south and east and continuing to push this through. You can see that throughout the entirety of the run here, we really don't get any big time snowstorms. Maybe something over there in northern Kentucky going into the Ohio Valley, but nothing really picking up on the models here that is showing that a major storm is going to develop yet on this new winter cold regimen. But that doesn't mean nothing's going to happen. Again, systems are going to disappear and reappear. Let's go look at the Euro and see what it's saying. The EPS model was the one that kind of gave us that indication that our flow is a little bit more further to the east than what some of our previous models were saying. So let's see if it's more in line with the GFS or more different. So as you can see, looks like it sets up that little trough as well as we move into the 18th. So there's some agreement there, but the Euro doesn't really have too much backside snow with that down into the southeast. Most of it is staying up here to the north. It forms a little bit of a low pressure system out there in the Atlantic Ocean. That really doesn't spin up too much until it gets up into the Nova Scotia region. After that moves out of the country, we start to see some more moisture return back into the Gulf of Mexico. But you can see, never really makes it up there. Looks like the flow is still too far to the east. Not really many low pressure systems can form. Maybe some backside snow going into the late portions. But again, we're way out here in fantasy land, so the chances of that happening just like this are super small. But it does kind of give you an understanding of how this pattern could develop if that flow is a little bit further to the east. So one of the things that I think is the most important thing to monitor as we go into the end of July is where this jet streak sets up. Because again, if it's going to be further to the east, a little bit further to the south, most of the storms will just develop where it's just too warm. It's going to be hard for the colder northern energy to phase with that moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. But if we move further into the future and then we see the shift back to the west, which is always possible, models change all the time, even our averages change, then that's when we're going to definitely be heightened and aware and start to talk a little bit more about that snow potential. But this is what happens when we're far out. Things change a lot. So it's never really a smart thing to do to take any of these long-range model runs with any serious, but it does really give us a range of what's possible here as we move into the future. Another thing that I think is really important to talk about is to continue to give updates on the fires out here across California. And as you can see over here near the Palisades fire, we're still at 14% containment, but man, I am struggling to see any hotspots showing up here on this visible satellite. Usually they pop up as like bright orange circles. You can see one over here, but there really aren't any along that fire perimeter. So what I'm wondering is whether or not they're thinking that there's still a lot of burning embers here that are just kind of waiting for some winds to pick up, because they haven't said 100% containment. In fact, they're only at 14% containment. So I'm not sure if these numbers are just old numbers and we're waiting for a new update, or if there truly is a decent amount of embers, because sometimes these fires burn so hot they can even burn underground a little bit. So we've got to be watching out for something that we call zombie fires. You get those high winds go over those areas, those fires can make it back up to the surface and start to spread. So we're really watching out for that, especially with the dangerous wind conditions we are expecting out here. Over near the Eaton fire, kind of the same thing, kind of repeat of what I just said there. But to be honest, 33% containment, it's not bad. They're making good progress over here on the Eaton fire. So hopefully that is enough to at least keep these fires from spreading. But again, if we get any of those embers reignite and then we get those embers start to fly into the sky with the wind, because again, we're going to be getting those 50 to 70 mile per hour winds. We can definitely see other fires start other places, and maybe these fires even grow. So we're still watching out for that potential. In terms of fire conditions across the region here, you can see that we do have now a 3 out of 5 here. This is an extreme risk for fire danger. This is a very bad scenario. We don't want these to come back, but they're back, okay? And that just goes to show you how ripe these conditions are for fire growth as we go throughout today into tomorrow. Talking about areas like Santa Clarita, St. Paula, Thousand Oaks, over there near Palmdale. Also, we got a critical risk here for fires all the way from Glendale, going in Ontario, Riverside, San Bernardino, Escondido, Oceanside. And then going into day 2, we have another extreme risk out there with another critical risk around that. So again, we got 2 to 3 days of dangerous fire conditions, okay? Over the next couple of days, as you can see, there's really just not going to be a whole lot of rain. And this is our future rain model here. We're just not seeing anything pop up. So we're not going to get any relief from the rain. Switching over to the dew points, a whole lot of change, unfortunately. We're not getting any surprise areas of moisture move through this area either. So definitely looking like, throughout today, tomorrow, going into the 15th, it's going to be dry as a bone. You mix that lack of rain with some of these winds that we are expecting in these regions. You can see anywhere along these mountains in the valley areas, we're going to be getting those higher winds pop up today. You can see 40 to 50 mile per hour winds over there near Santa Clarita. Could get as high as 70 mile per hour winds over there. It kind of calms down throughout the night. Going into the morning hours, though, you can see we get some escalations here in those same regions. A little bit less over here near Oxnard. But as we go into the 14th, you can see the winds, unfortunately, really start to pick up here. So again, really dangerous fire conditions over here. If you live in these areas, you need to be weather aware. We're going to get some brief periods when those winds calm down, but we're really talking about 55 to 70 mile per hour winds. Not as strong as they were last time, but still strong enough to cause some extreme fire danger. So please be fire aware. Be ready to evacuate if you're put under an evacuation order. And I would make sure you have some extra food and water, non-potable food like canned food, just in case the power starts to go out for a lot of you guys again. But all right, everybody, that's going to be it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you guys coming in time and time again to watch the forecasts. Really does mean a lot to me, and I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. If you're down there in Los Angeles, we're hoping and praying for you guys that the fires don't get started again and start to become as dangerous as they were last time. I'll be watching it on my end. If anything crazy starts to happen, I'll most likely issue a live stream, so be watching out for that if you live in the Los Angeles region. And I will see you guys again tomorrow with another forecast. If not, peace.